Okay, the sounds of Jalen Carr. I see miracles. Our time stands 8:30. We're going to switch over to Studio B and say good morning to you, Brother Michael, the Sports Talk Man. Jenkins.
Good morning, Tater. Good morning to everyone out there. Welcome to PD sportswrap. It's basketball season. There's a lot going on. There's a big basketball hoedown going down at Wilson High School tonight, or today, not tonight. And it kicks off at 11 a.m. this morning. Oh, boy. That kicked off too, didn't it? Oh, boy. Let's see. Playing a little dropsies here this morning. Anyway, session 1 starts at 11 a.m. and that will be Loris High School boys versus Marion P. Thomas. I don't know where they're from. It's got a little thing there, but I can't read what it says. So that's going to kick it off. Loris versus Marion P. Thomas at 11. At 12:30, JP2, that translates to John Paul II, they will play against Gibbs High School out of Florida. The Marion P. Thomas, no, I still can't read that. Anyway, looking at the Miami South Ridge, will play against James Island of South Carolina. You know James Island down at Charleston way. That will take place at 2 o'clock. At 4:30, Ascension out of South Carolina versus Wilson High School. That's going to be the feature game, obviously, because Wilson is the home team and the host. At 6 p.m., Marion Swamp Foxes play against Hampton County. At 7:30, Victory Christian out of North Carolina will play against, this must be girls. Hold on a second here. Anyway, it says Wilson High School, so Victory Christian versus Wilson High School at 7:30. Does that mean Wilson's going to play twice? Anyway, now this is the one that's very interesting, and that is Eagle Academy out of New York. Eagle has been one of the best teams over the last few years in New York City basketball, high school basketball. And I learned about them from my nephew, who coaches up there as well. And Eagle Academy will be in Florence tonight at 9 p.m. as they face off against Springdale Prep out of Maryland. So apparently the Wilson folks have really, went out there and put together, a tournament on a national scale. Actually, they're bringing some really good teams here, plus some locals. So it should be a fun day of basketball at Wilson High School. I think I'm going to get over there at some point today. I don't know when, but of course, this is the week before Christmas, the Saturday before Christmas, and a lot's going on. It's kind of busy out there, a little bit too busy for my taste. But the big story this week, on a global scale in the state of South Carolina, is the South Carolina High School realignment. And but this is a proposal, from what I understand. It's not ironclad yet. But I couldn't help but be amazed by some of the teams and the proposals made forth for them, including the effect it's going to have on Marion County. Are you ready for this, folks? For those of you that don't know, Marion High School and Mullins High School will now be single A schools. Single A schools. They will compete in single A next year if the proposal goes through. When I moved here, Marion and Mullins were both 3A. And the only single A schools in the county was Terrells Bay and Britton's Neck. Gerald's Bay and Britain's Neck is long gone. Marion has now replaced them. Marion and Mullins has replaced them as single A schools. I'm going to let this sink in for a minute. How important is that to you? What do you have to say about Marion and Mullins now being 1A? There's some other teams within the flow of the realignment here that might be a little bit surprising to many as well, not just Marion and Mullins, but for us, for our sake here. Wow, that was a shocker. I want to thank my little buddy Josiah for hitting me up with this yesterday. I wasn't aware that these things were going on. I wasn't aware that these decisions had been made. Good morning, Mr. Lawrence Williams. Good morning, Mr. Carl Brantley. What do you guys think about the realignment? Let's take a look at the classifications and see how this whole thing shakes down. And let's take a look first at single A. This is where Marion and Mullins now lives. There are teams in there like, for instance, Fairfield Central, a team that's been a perennial power in the upper divisions. Fairfield Central is now in single A. You have Kingstree down there. You have Burke. Well, Burke's been in single A for a minute. And that was a shocker when they dropped down to single A. Everyone was saying, wow, Burke is a single A school now. But right behind Burke, you have Mullins. And they have the total enrollment here for each school as well. 96, which is supposedly the biggest single A school in the state, has 489 students. We go down to Mullins. Mullins has 449 students. And you go down to two spots later, you have Sherrod 437, Marion at 433. There's a little irony here. Eau Claire being a single A school now, and Marion and Eau Claire have had contact with each other on the basketball court multiple times over back in the day, you might say, not lately. At the time, Eau Claire was 4A. They dropped down to 3A, and that's where Marion was at the time, when they had probably their best team ever. And over a space of 3 years, Eau Claire eliminated Marion 2 times. Of course, Eau Claire was known for having the Jermaine O'Neills, the Thaddeus Delaney's, the Bud Johnsons, big-time talent, big-time coach in George Glimp. And now they're both in single A. Looking down, Marion's 400. I didn't realize that Mullins now had more students than Marion High School. But there it is. 433 for Marion, 449 for Mullins. Latta is in there as well. They have 401 students. And then you have traditional single A powers like Abbeville. And Abbeville is down. They got a lot of company in that single A bracket, I tell you that. A lot of company. Carver's Bay. And I see Carver's Bay here. But I see Carver's Bay Early College and Career High. When did that change? At any rate. Got Johnsonville in there. Calhoun County, who had dropped to single A many years ago, are there as well. But let's take a look at the bigger divisions. Because Charleston has got, let's see, let's look at 5A. Okay, 5A. Now, 5A are the really big schools, or the bigger schools, the biggest schools in the state. And the biggest school in the state right now is Dorman High School. And Dorman has almost 3,000 students, 2929. And they are followed by Somerville with 2729, Carolina Forest 2635, James F. Burns 2500, and then you have your Spring Valleys, your Boiling Springs, your West Ashleys, and so on. Now, in this division, there's a bunch of Charleston and Charleston area schools, which, I mean, they pretty much dominate the top half of this list. When you think about Somerville, when you think about West Ashley, when you think about Wando, Stratford, I'm not sure about Ashley Ridge though, but James Island, let's see, Fort Dorchester, Berkeley. So in that top 20, you've probably got 8 schools from the Charleston area. So they dominate that. Conway dropped to 4A. And South Florence, who's been having a lot of success over the last 2 years in 4A, are now moved up to 5A. Let me see if I can. Yep, there it is. South Florence has 1,708 students. They will now compete again in 5A. Conway, who'd been in 5A, it's been struggling for years. They may have been given a kind of a reprieve because now they're down at 4A. They may be able to compete better there than they had been at the 5A level. 4A, let me see what's going on in 4A. Well, there you have Conway. They've got 1,500 students, and they are one of the 2 biggest 4A teams in the state. Wilson remains in there at 15-17. So, Gaffney, a team that was a 5A team. Gaffney is now down in 4A. Let's see. North Myrtle Beach High School, 4A. Let's see who else we got there. And those are all the notable. Wait a minute. Oh, yeah. That comes next. We move down to 3A, and Dillon is no longer in 3A for, going forward. They are going to be dropped down to 2A. Hartsville also drops down from 4A to 3A. The Red Foxes. Also, the Darlington Falcons and Lower Richland are all going to be now 3A teams. So that's going to be something right there. Now, of course, 2A, OW has dropped down to 2A. Dillon is there. And browsing 2A, let me see what we got. Because when the kid told me, he said, look, man, Newberry, he's a Newberry guy. He said, Newberry they're taking us down to 2A. And so I immediately thought about Marion and Mullins. So I started scrolling the graphic that he sent me, Class 2A. And I was like, wait a minute. I don't see Marion or Mullins in here. He said, Mr. Jenkins, I think they probably moved them down to single A. I was like, what? Single A? Which makes you think for a minute. How many towns do you know? How many these little local towns that you know have 2 single A high schools in them at the same time? Not towns, but counties. What counties have 2 single A teams? Which makes people start thinking about consolidation. If Marion and Mullins were to combine, that would make them a 4A school. Let's see. Yes, it would. Because 4A, let's see how many they got. Marion will have 900 plus students. So they would possibly get into this 4A classification right here. Or at the very least, 3A. At the very least, 3A. So I don't know. I don't know how you folks feel about that. I don't know if that's what you want. If you want consolidation, I don't know. We've been talking about consolidation for years and years around here. Nothing has happened. And now, here we are, Marion and Mullins, 2 single-A schools in a little tiny county like ours. What's the plan going forward? People I know have been screaming about consolidation for years. But it's never happened. So I wonder now, what's the next move for our school system here? Whether we're going to consolidate now or what, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to find out what goes down. Because I think this proclamation by the high school league kind of makes things a little bit different. And I think is maybe more of a sense of urgency now than maybe it had been. I don't know. I don't know what the school folks are thinking about, but all I know is that certainly this really gets your attention. Okie dokie, let's see what we got. Well, my journey last week, or this week, started in Dillon. And I went over to watch Dillon versus Marion basketball game. And it didn't turn out very well for Marion, boys or girls. The girls gave a decent showing. They fell to Dillon girls 56-52. Marion did make a little run and stayed close. There was a chance that they could win that game, but they did not. Looking at Dillon girls basketball, and they've been doing pretty well, too. If I can just see, yeah, here we go. Dillon girls are right now 8-1, and they look pretty good out there to me. I suspect they'll get better. You got that girl Treasure out there who's doing it. And Marion girls struggled a little bit, but I think they're going to be fine too. Now, as far as the boys' game went, Marion boys fell hard to Dillon by a score of 74-58. Now, of course, the caveat is they were missing 2 starters. And both of those starters returned time enough to play against rival Mullins on last Tuesday night, where Marion came away with a 66-60 overtime win over Mullins. This was a battle. It's a game that Marion basically led all the way until precious few minutes left in the fourth quarter, when Mullins surged, tied the game, and took the lead, which eventually went into overtime, in which Marion eventually won. The folks that really distinguished themselves for Mullins, KJ Ford, a youngster that you've heard me talk about multiple times on the program. And you might have heard me say earlier in the year that KJ's time may be next year because of the glut of point guards and guard types that Mullins has. But This was the first game I seen Mullins play this year, and I might have been wrong about KJ. His time might not be next year. From the looks of things, his time is now. Played a brilliant game. Played like he belonged out there. He started and really, really triggered the Mullins offense almost as much as anybody on the floor. Made big shots, hustled on defense, came up with steals, made his free throws. KJ was outstanding. He's the younger cousin of Deion Ford, the other guard for Mullins, who also played well, really triggered Mullins. And then Jakari Worley also played extremely well for Mullins. He hit some big shots. He had a crazy stat line. But he's averaging about 20 and 15. 20 points, 15 rebounds. Now, if you know anything about this youngster, he's not a big guy. Maybe 6 feet, 6'1". But he's a great athlete. And he is a pressure guy. He's not a guy who forces anything. He's not thirsty to get off shots. He's more thirsty to get a rebound back than he is for throwing up a shot. On the boards, this kid is hungry. Hungry, thirsty, everything. So, for Marion's part, the big gun was Charles White. And Charles made big shots all night, really forced the action, did not shy away from the Mullins relentless defense. He handled it. So Charles White, star of the basketball team, clearly the best player right now and the leader of the team, played brilliantly. And Charles is going to be All-State this year. You can go ahead and write that down this minute. He has all the tools. He has next-level ability as well. Another one, Joshua Grant, which is Wilbur Grant's grandson, played brilliantly at point guard for Marion. I dare say that they don't win that game without him. Ian Goss, the big man for Marion, has shown a lot this season so far. He played big defensively against Mullins last week. Made a few shots. But it was really an intimidating factor around the basket. He was going for everything. He didn't always get everything. But he went for almost everything. His future is bright. Jalen Nolan, 9th grader, played extremely hard against Mullins and was a big factor with 10 rebounds. No. He's averaging 10 rebounds. Yeah, he's averaging 10 rebounds a game. And he's a guard, and he's a freshman. But he was all over the place in this game, was very impactful for the Swamp Foxes on their road to victory. Roderick Dickerson, a kid you've heard me talk about a lot over the last couple of weeks or so. I'll continue to talk about him because he continues to play extremely well for Marion. With he and Goss, they form a big front court, two bigs, and they normally throw in Charles White there, and then the Grant kid and Nolan. So Marion's starting 5 or their starting 6 is pretty solid. But that was a big win for them. Mullins having just come off a big win against Atlantic Collegiate. Oh, that's another thing. Atlantic Collegiate is going up to 3A. So this will be the last year that Marion and Mullins will have to compete against Atlantic Collegiate Academy. Because now they move down, Atlantic Collegiate moves up. What's happening in the NFL these days? The Ravens on your last leg. The Ravens basically got to win these next 3 games to assure themselves in the playoffs. They have to beat the Steelers, and they have to beat Green Bay, and the game they have this week, they got to beat them as well. So the Ravens are in trouble. They put themselves behind the 8 ball earlier in the year, and they're still behind it. They have a record of 7-7. So that's 14 games. I think they play 17. There's 3 games left. Yeah. So they got work to do. Sadly, Patrick Mahomes suffered a terrible injury. He's gone for the season. Nobody can really say how good he's going to be when he comes back, or if he comes back, because ACLs are deadly. And they've not been doing well anyhow. What's up, Randy Page? Good morning, Miss Andrea. They've not been doing well anyway, but now they're done. Cowboys are on their last leg. I thought maybe after they beat the Eagles, maybe they might move ahead and and get to the playoff. But good morning, Ronald Rao. How are you? But I don't think the Cowboys are going to make the playoffs this year, folks. As a Cowboy fan, I don't know what that means for y'all. But it can't be good. Because just a few weeks ago, you guys were screaming, "We are them boys." Y'all were screaming, "We are them boys" again. And the minute y'all start screaming, "We are them boys," you lost the last couple games in a row. And your playoffs hopes have dimmed. So, I don't see you guys doing nothing. Kendall Baldwin, my boy, what's up, man? Kendall had a nice little game, couldn't think of it. You had a nice little game, Kendall. You were long, too. You weren't as good as your brother Rodney, though, I got to tell you. Rodney was that guy. NBA, the NBA Cup. Good morning, Pamela Owens. How are you doing this morning here? The NBA Cup is garbage, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I don't like no NBA Cup. The NBA Cup does nothing for me. What is the point of the NBA Cup? And I'm watching the Knicks, my former team, up there celebrating like they just won something. I mean, Knicks, I know it's been a long time. Ain't nothing staying out of it. Good. That's good. The Knicks celebrated like it was 1969. Marcus Johnson, what's up? It's not 1969, Knicks. It's not even 1973. Y'all standing up there acting like y'all celebrating the NBA championship. Shameful. Disgraceful. One of the Lakers fans was saying, yeah, y'all up there, Knicks fans, y'all celebrating. And then when LeBron and them won it, y'all was hating. I was hating then, and I'm hating now. The NBA Cup is garbage. Speaking of garbage, I hate to say this, my Warriors are looking like garbage right now. Garbage. I don't know what their plans are. I don't know what their plans were. But this team that they put together is really going nowhere. I mean, Steph is doing what he does. He can't carry these guys. Regular season long and boring. They just tried to motivate the player. That's Marcus Johnson. That makes sense, Marcus. But I don't know if that's working, bro. Kendall Bone said, "Why the blank is Bronny still on the bench?" But the first, you know what? I wasn't gonna say that, but you're 100% right, Kendall. The worst thing that could have happened to Dalton Connect was to be drafted the same year that they pulled off that fiasco of a Bronny James pick. Crazy. Because now basically his career is on hold because They still want Bronny to be a player. And he's terrible. They're saying that Bronny might be the worst NBA player ever. I don't know about that. But he's pretty bad. And why he's still on the pro roster is beyond me. Anyway, Taylor, that's all the time I have left. Oh, the Lakers are doing good too. But that's not going to last. As soon as they got to guard somebody, when the playoffs start, they're going to be done. So, Kendall Baldwin, last word. Kendall said the Lakers is a clown show. Yeah, Kendall, I kind of agree with that. Anyway, folks, that's all the time I have left. I'll be back next week with more. Christmas is next week. Have a wonderful, safe Christmas. See you.
Stellar Award